Welcome to Alternative Dog Moms Podcast. I'm Kimberly Gauthier, the creator of Keep the Tail Wagging. For the past 9 years, I've been blogging about raw feeding, pet wellness, and life as a crazy dog mom. I've seen massive improvements in my dog's health since I started raising my dogs naturally, and I'm passionate about sharing my experience to help other pet parents.
I'm Erin Scott. For the past 9 years, I've been researching and learning everything I can about healing cancer, allergies, autoimmune, and mystery illnesses in both my dogs and myself, and I can't wait to share with you everything I've learned on this journey. As the Alternative Dog Moms, we're bringing you all the latest dog health news that we're following and sharing the tips, tricks, and resources we learn along the way. Now, let's get started. Well, hello, Kimberly.
Hello, Erin.
We're here today with my lovely friend, Poppy Phillips. One of my favorite people that I've gotten to meet in this animal journey that I've been on these last few years. Welcome, Poppy. You are an animal naturopath.
I am an animal naturopath, which is a glorified title for like animal wellness coach or an animal life coach. I don't know, whatever you want to call it. So one of my problems with animal naturopath is I'm not a veterinarian. So going to animal naturopathic certification school, I literally was not satisfied with the education I got at all. I didn't want to be a vet. I didn't want to euthanize. I rolled the idea around in college. I did go to Cal Poly and studied agriculture and animal husbandry and was on like the rodeo teams and horse show teams and all of that. And so I've always been like head first into animals. Animals are like my jam. The dogs and the cats came later. I'm actually not very good at cats, but I do help cats. The iridology and the muscle testing, as long as the cat owners help me along the way. And I have like a worksheet that I go through and just make sure I stay on track. So I won't say like I'm the greatest cat person at all, but horses first, dogs second. And I've been happy to help lots of dog owners. So that's exciting for me.
So besides the fact that you didn't go to veterinarian school, what's the difference between what you do and what we would get at a vet's office?
Oh my gosh, so much. So of course I can't do surgery. I can't advise on medication. I can't diagnose and I can't pierce the skin. But what I can do is try to point the owner in the right direction. So initially when I created this business, originally it was equine alternatives. And I just gave people who were stuck and veterinarians who were stuck a new perspective. So I just had fresh eyes with a holistic background and could throw something different at them to think about. And often it was the right way. So I was kind of like everybody's last call first, then everybody's first call the next time around. And so that's how it kind of evolved. I actually do pet prayers too, and I get insight that way. So I think that's probably how it started. It started in 1998 in the holistic animal realm, in the holistic horse realm, because I was a horse trainer. I was sick of seeing horses go round and around for blue ribbons, just being machines for owners and people winning prizes on them. And then when they weren't winning prizes on them, they dumped them to get another horse to win prizes on. I was like, you want a relationship with that animal. So it got harder and harder for me to show up as a horse trainer, a competitive horse trainer. And we even went to the world championships and stuff like that. And I couldn't do it anymore. I was just like, it's breaking my heart. I want to give back to the silent sufferers. Mm-hmm. So that's how the evolution of this came along. And with the dogs, it was pretty much my own dog's traumas and then learning more about dogs through my own dog's issues. And I think that's probably part of your podcast is everybody that was transformed by their dog's crisis or concerns or their love. And so that is my story too.
I see that big head behind you.
Erin and I were laughing. So I own 5 acres in Shingle Springs, California. I kind of call it the land of the lost toys because I get like rehomes and horses given to me. I haven't bought an animal in a really long time. People just give me animals. So, yeah.
That's lovely. I wish.
And so how did you start learning about things like iridology and muscle testing and like all these other tools in the toolbox?
So the muscle testing was probably the first thing I really learned. I was blown away with equine chiropractic. Equine kind of chiropractic kind of hit the scene around the early 90s. And I had a client that bought a really expensive horse, and instantly when it came to my barn for training, it started going downhill. And I called the other trainer that sold me the horse and went, what's going on here? And they're like, oh, we have this equine chiropractor that comes out and adjusts this horse all the time. So I had to call the guy out, and he adjusted the horse, and it was wonderful. And I was like, wow, this is a game changer. So knowing that horses' backs get sore and all of that, I personally started getting sick as a horse trainer, strep throat multiple times. The medical field basically said, we've done everything we can. You're antibiotic resistant. Go home. There's nothing we can do for you. So they didn't recommend like a specialist or anything. Like they just said, you're done. Good luck. Have a nice life. And I was just like, what? And so I went home. I didn't know what to do. And one of my clients in the horse training business handed me this guy's name and number on a crumpled up piece of paper and said, call him. He can cure anything. And I was like, anything? Like, how could this be? And I gave him a call, and he goes, can you drive over here? I'm like, I have 104 temperature. I can't get to you right now. And he goes, just take the back roads, go really slow. And I'm like, you're crazy. I don't even know you. So I took the back roads. I went really slow. And thank God he was only 10 miles away from my apartment at the time. And this was in Thousand Oaks, California. And I promptly fainted on his stairs and woke up to him dragging me by my armpits into his house, this small Jewish man. And he was waving smelling salts in front of my face, which worked great. I was shocked. I couldn't believe how good those worked. I was like, why don't we use those anymore? But once he revived me, he started doing this arm strength testing, which I had never seen, never heard of, was like, this is voodoo. What are you doing? I don't understand this. And in 24 hours, I was healthy. And then he does like a 2-part series. So he does like muscle testing, gaits, so stimulates acupressure points. And then you come back for just the overall targets, he called it, which is body parts, and cleared that up. Never got strep throat again to this day. And so I was all in. I'm like, oh, okay, this has just changed my life. I have a career riding horses again because I thought I was going to shut my career down. I go, but you have to teach me this. I cannot like know that this exists and just like wander around training horses. So he did.
You mentioned arm testing. What does that mean?
Okay, the arm strength testing is a resistance testing. So as the tester pushes down, the patient pushes up. So you create a tension. And that is a yes or a strong answer. But if it's something that weakens you, then your arm will go straight down. There will be like no ability to push that arm up. It's really radical and cool. And I believe that's how the lie detector test is based off of like nerve impulses. And when you tell a lie, you literally like weaken yourself. And so it can be a lie detector test. I have done that on people and busted them on lies. So, so I went the gamut, you guys. I tested everything. I went a little unhealthy and a little too far, and I definitely had to reel it. But here I am with lots of experience, lots of a little crazy, and some really beneficial work that I've been able to do, which I'm really grateful for.
Can you explain what muscle testing is? Because I've heard this so many times over the past decade, but I really don't understand what it is.
So the way I was taught it by my mentor, Lou Mehron, is he was primarily focused on pathogens, allergens, things like that, and clearing it out. So he would have vials of the diseases and have them placed in your hand, and you resist him and he pushes down, but the disease that's actually affecting you, you'll have no strength whatsoever. So your arm will drop. But you can do lifestyle, you can do conversation. So I actually use it as a conversation modality for animals. So it looks like I'm a animal communicator or a psychic, but actually I just do muscle testing really fast. So people are like, oh my gosh, you're an amazing animal communicator. I'm like, no, not really. I'm just like asking a ton of questions really, really fast. And so it comes off as pretty cool in that way. So it's a very insightful tool. I personally focus, like I have 3 focuses when people hire me: anything urgent, anything painful, anything stressful, because I want to know those main things. And I came to those categories because I screwed up. So I would be focused on something that really wasn't that important. And I was kind of going down a rabbit trail. So I finally was like, I took Lou's work and just modified it to the animals and the humans. I don't advertise that I work on humans, and I don't work on humans a lot. But if there is something that's nobody's getting answers for, I'm like, yeah, what the heck? We'll give it a go. And if it helps you, great. But just because it helped me and gave me my life back twice, actually. So I just have a no disease policy in my world. Like, I just think no one should ever suffer. And Lou taught me anything you catch should be curable. So when people say this is incurable, I'm like, don't believe it. I don't believe it. I believe there's a way, somehow, somewhere. And I believe in the impossible. So yes, I'm a disease detective. I like to fight for people, and people get exhausted. So they need somebody fighting for them. And usually I'm that person. Often I'll fight harder for their animals than they will. So yes. Did that help? Did I go down a rabbit trail?
No, not at all.
So how does it work? So I understand working with you yourself, with a practitioner. How does it work when you're working with an animal and that animal's not physically with you?
It took me a long time to be confident in that, Erin. I wouldn't do long distance very much. Just right before COVID, I started transitioning into it because it's a freaky concept that you almost like a voodoo doll, right? Is like you get their vibe from a distance and you're like, is this right? Could this be right? So before that is when the prayer process started kicking in. I'm like, I'm not comfortable with this. Can we just pray? And pretty much every pet owner has been like, yeah, great. Go ahead and pray for my pet, and just set the process up with the prayer. And it seemed to really help the connection. So more times than not, I've been accurate, and I've been able to work on animals sitting right here from all over the world. So it's just been pretty amazing. Now, I'm not like this amazing microbiologist regarding dog diseases. I do study diseases that it is kind of exciting for me, but I wouldn't know it if I saw it under a microscope. Like if somebody was like, Poppy, what is that under a microscope? I'd be like, I don't know. Maybe it's a virus. So yes, I'm not an expert to that degree, though I would kind of like to be.
I know. I just always want to know everything about everything. Is that too much to ask?
I'm the same way, Erin. I think it's beautiful. You have to stay inquisitive in this world.
So is muscle testing and everything else you do, is it something that the average pet parent can do on their own?
So the arm strength testing, you just need a surrogate. And I teach muscle testing because I see it it's done kind of sloppy. And I really feel like people don't always get the right answers. And then they get discouraged and just kind of throw up their hands and go, it doesn't work for me. But usually it's just sloppy technique. So I like to teach it. It's easier in person. It's really hard to teach online because I'm not there helping you and moving things around. But yes, you totally can get a friend or a family member to put their hand in the middle of your dog or cat's back or horse and have them put their arm out and resist and ask questions. You want to make sure you complete your sentence before you push on that arm, because you're actually just testing the word that you're on if you happen to be like talking and pushing instead of the whole statement. It's very legal. So you have to watch your wording, and you can really screw up by not watching your wording.
Hey, quick question for you. Are you someone who wants to be fit, healthy, and happy? And what if I told you could get your dream body by simply just listening to a podcast? I'm Josh.
And I'm KG, and we're the hosts of the Fit, Healthy, and Happy podcast.
Listen, we get it. Fitness isn't easy. Carbs, no carbs.
Just stop, okay? It doesn't have to be that complicated. And that's why we made this podcast. We get straight to the facts so you can become your best you.
So the way to check us out is click the link in the show notes or search Fit, Healthy, and Happy podcast on any of the major podcast platforms. We'll see you soon.
Do you mean you can really screw up because it'll lead you down the wrong direction?
You'll just get a weird answer because you weren't clear in your articulation. So you might ask a yes, no question or a weak or strong question. So a common thing I ask is, like, if we're going to do your dog, Kimberly, is there something urgent with your dog? That's a yes or no question. And then we go through weak or strong questions like, is it an infection? Is it an allergen? Is it a toxin? Is it a deficiency? Is it a lifestyle issue? And you can ask anything you want once you get a connection. Once you are a surrogate and you confirm the animal's name and you have permission to do it, the world's open.
Okay. That is not what I thought it was. I'm embarrassed to share what I thought muscle testing was.
Well, this is the way I take muscle testing to a really intense level.
I thought it was just like pinching the muscle.
Oh, so there is like this kinesiology, college kinesiology muscle improvement. So it's physical therapy and they work on sports medicine. And that is totally different than arm strength testing, applied kinesiology. And people get confused about that all the time.
And can you do muscle testing? Does it have to be on like a person or animal? Can you do it on products or supplements or treats?
Good question. Yeah, you could totally do products and trees and the grass or whatever.
Or treat, like dog treats.
Sure, you could muscle test. You could muscle test to your dog to see if it's an appropriate treat for your dog.
Yeah. Okay.
Yes, you can totally do that.
Okay.
That was the same question I was going to ask.
Really?
Yeah.
Yeah. So I test. He has a lot of allergies. They're the same allergies as me. So he's probably too close to me. I'm always praying for us to be severed because we're both allergic to mushrooms and we're both allergic to some other things. And he's close to being vegan. I don't want him being vegan, but he's so sensitive to so many proteins. I'm like, dude, please don't be me. Don't do this. So I muscle test his food often.
When you muscle test his food, are you still like doing where you touching him or have someone touching him?
I do. I touch him personally.
Okay.
And I just do like a looping thumb or forefinger or a single-handed method. And just ask away, like, how much can he handle beef today? How much beef is good for him? So the portions, if you go a little too far, it might be a histamine reaction. If you don't do enough, then he might not get enough protein or the necessary nutrients, and then all his supplements. So It's a long day every day right now with him.
This is interesting.
Yeah, I wish I could make like a week of food, but every day is different for him. So he's on sardines and beef right now. He couldn't eat beef for a year. So I'm excited that he can eat beef. That's saving me some money right now. But I don't know how long we're going to do beef. And so
I'm going through this with Rodrigo because he had a really bad reaction to a supplement recently. And he was sick for a little more than, about a week and a half. So he had 4 or 5 days of loose stool and diarrhea. And then he stopped eating completely and for several days. And then I was able to get him to eat, but he would only eat a few ounces of food at a time. And he wouldn't eat anything that was part of his diet when he was sick because he associates it now with being sick. So now it's a matter of every day, it's like, is he going to eat this? And so like yesterday, I was like, okay, I found something. He cleaned his bowl, licked the dish. And I'm like, okay, good. Make it today. And he's just like, yeah, no, I'm not eating that. And so it's just like, thankfully I have 3 other dogs. So I basically took what he didn't eat in the next meal. I split it between the other dogs and then add other things. But it's just like this guessing game on a daily basis. My heart breaks for people who have dogs that have severe allergies or dogs that are insanely picky. Because I kind of look at picky dogs as dogs knowing that I can't eat that. But they don't have the way of saying that to us.
Well, and that's what the muscle testing is really good at, Kimberly, because they'll be like, you'll go down all your proteins, all your food sources, and you can test it away or do the Glacier Peak. It's kind of based on the same concept, but you'll even get hits that it's actually good for them, but they don't like it. So we'll still test negative because they're like, don't want to eat that. Don't want to eat that. Don't want to eat that. I'll eat that. And well, if you eat it, is it good for you then? And they're like, no, it's not really good for me, but I'll eat it. So then you have to kind of like juggle around what's good for them and what's not and how to inspire them.
Yeah.
And it could be as simple as changing bowls and making it a little different for him too, right?
I'm going to go buy a new bowl. Actually, I have tons of, I feed my dogs out of pasta bowls because they're more, what's the word? They're flatter. So that way I can spread the food out and he can see everything and his nose doesn't get overwhelmed with scent. And whenever I find them, they're at a local store, whenever they start, like they clearance out a certain dish type, I go through and buy all the pasta dishes. And since, they don't need to match because they're for my dogs. And so I actually have a whole cabinet in our kitchen that in the very back is stacked high of pasta dishes that I haven't used.
That's crazy. Yet, so. That's awesome. That's pretty cool. Well, you might have to go to a licky mat or something to just kind of spool him for a minute and make him work for it. I don't know. Give it a go.
Yeah.
What we do for our animals,
right?
Like,
I mean, that's just crazy. Exactly what's in my head.
I think that's why I'm single.
So did you say iridology earlier?
Yes.
I did say iridology.
What is iridology?
I'm so obsessed with this, even though I'm terrible at it myself.
I'm like, why are you obsessed? You never submit eyes to me ever, Erin. I'm
like fascinated. I do watch it sometimes. I watch the playbacks because I'm like, I know I'm so bad at it, but I love watching you do it.
It's interesting, isn't it? It's such a cool modality and it's really user friendly for the pet owner. And so it's a study of the colored part of the eye called the iris. And you've got all these marks in there. And so if you are a devoted pet owner, you look deeply in your pet's eye and went, what's that? Right? How many of us have done that? And so if it's not like an ulcerated cornea or some sort of glaucoma or something like that, it's just a superficial mark. Often your vets will be like, oh, it's nothing. Don't worry about it. Well, it actually means something. The iris is so crazy. It relates to every single body part on your body. And so the right eye controls the right side of the body, the left eye marks on the left side of the body. And we've done lots of animals. And we have this membership, this online membership, when we study irises, people submit, we assess, we have their clinical history too. So some people have medical history backing the irises, and sometimes we do the iris, and sometimes we send them to the vet going, hey, get this checked out. And the iridology actually has been pretty accurate. It still needs some work. I won't say it's an exact science, but it gives you an idea of where to look.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. I like
that. And so you can even detect like different textures, different blob streaks, fibrous looking eyes. Any sort of change means something. So I always tell everybody, every eye tells a story. You just need to learn how to read it.
Mm-hmm.
So I actually got to track my dog's spinal cord tumor. He had a meningioma, had it removed, and when he went through the surgery, his eye totally changed. And so I got to track, I took a photo before the surgery and then after the surgery. His GI tract area cleaned up a lot because he wasn't allowed to eat. He was on IVs for a long time. The surgery was really hard on him, but it was really fun to see the eye change. And then about 6, maybe 3, 4, 5 months into it, after post-surgery, I noticed this little nodule mark in like the 7 o'clock spot in his right eye. And I called my neurosurgeon and said, it's growing back. And he goes, it's not growing back. Your dog's fine. You're like overthinking this. Don't worry about it. And then a week later, he goes, I think it's growing back. And they gave me an MRI at cost just to see. And so before they read the MRI, I'm like, hold on, I want to tell you what I think the MRI says. And he's like, how would you know? So I was like, it's back. There's 2 and it's bigger than ever. And he goes, that's impossible. How would you know that? And I go, look at my iridology case study. I'm like feeling bad because my dog is getting more and more neurologic and paralyzed, but I'm super thrilled that it was accurate. And he was blown away. He's like, that is crazy. And so I have photos of his iris and the MRI, and it almost like the tumors on the MRI almost match the iris marks.
Oh, wow.
It's really cool. So I would have never known that was a tumor mark except for the surgery, and it vanished. And then it started to grow back. They never really got the whole thing, I think, in the surgery because there was still a little blip. And then it just started encompassing the eye. And I was like, no. So that's why I love it for pet owners is you can see if your diet's working. So you can see if you're on the correct protocol, the eye clears up and everybody goes, oh, your eyes look so bright, right? And even the Bible talks about like windows to the soul and clear eyes to the health. And so we know instinctively that bright, healthy eyes are healthy bodies, but dark eyes are toxic bodies.
So do you need to look at both eyes when you're reviewing?
Yes, I like to. You know, it's a little touch and go to get a dog and cats, both eyes. Cat lovers, I salute you. You know, it's just, and once you insult them with a flash, they might just give you the paw the next time. Like you be really, really tactical about it. Like practice on everybody else's animals, not the one animal you really want the photo of. And you might want to just video it with a flash on and get really close and maybe have additional lighting to the side, have treats. Like it's a production to create like this nice experience that you can do it if you're in a crisis situation. You can track your disease progression or regression through doing it, but you don't. Most dogs don't let you do it every single week. So get a good feel for it. You can just look in their eyes if their eyes are clear enough. Horses have these big, beautiful, pretty eyes. So it's really easy. They don't care if you shine a bright light in their eyes, but dogs, they hate it.
So I took her Poppy's course on iridology. And so through the course, she has like these grids that's like a map of basically like mapping out like how all of the parts of the body where the marks are on the eye. So like she said, like there's something at 7 o'clock, and then she has like a grid that's like, okay, well 7 o'clock is spleen, or whatever it is. And so I'm so fascinated by it, and I'm so bad at it.
You're not bad at it.
I'm so
you just need to do it more. It's not, you guys, it's not hard at all. I'm actually going to do an intro to Iridology class coming up here. So it's going to be like $35. It's not going to be a big deal. And it's going to be a 1 hour intro. And so if people want to learn more, they can hop on that. That'll be, I don't know, when does this air?
Like next week.
Yeah.
Okay. It'll be August 26th.
Okay. Perfect.
Yeah. I was planning on that, but I didn't talk to you on your air dates.
Perfect.
Yeah. So I'll drop the URL for you guys. You can post
Wonderful.
that. People are excited. But yes, the eyes tell a story. What you can't tell sometimes is if they're on medication. If they're on anti-inflammatories, it might block the marks, the nerve receptors that mark on the eye. So you could get a false positive that your dog's super healthy. And we learned that early on with horses and dogs that, people were bringing us dogs and horses that were pretty messed up. Like you could just see it. You didn't need to read the eye. You're like, that dog doesn't look so good. And you're like, the eye looks pretty awesome though. So we finally put two and two together and we're like, is your dog on medication? And they're like, oh yeah, tons. And so, yes, there's certain medications that block the nerve receptors. There's certain medications that don't. So you just definitely have to like take the case.
Okay.
And so the way my like horrible layperson understanding is, because there's so many nerves that connect to the eye, through the back of the eye, like that it literally everything through your body does connect there. And so therefore changes in your body will even, that's how they reflect in the eye. Am I anywhere near close?
Totally right.
Okay.
You're totally right. And it's real time, you guys. So you can make a change or a chiropractic adjustment and the eye changes instantly. Mm-hmm. So you can literally look in the eye and go, your dog needs a chiropractic adjustment in this quadrant of their body. And then when the chiropractor, as long as they did a good job, works it, then the shape of the pupil actually changes instantly. So when I go to Equine Body Works and I work on their bodies, I'll look in their eye and go, ooh, not good. I kind of miss that. And then go back and just redo what I think I didn't do the greatest job on. So it's very real time.
Interesting. So you have some pictures for us.
I hope so. I hope they'll pull up. And so we're going to do Erin's dog real quick. Look at his sweet face.
Yay.
And so the first thing I'm seeing is, you guys see how dark it is around the pupil?
Yeah.
And that just stands out. And that's actually a toxic GI tract. So you'll see you can gauge if your animal's toxic by like darkness around the pupil, and that's all GI tract area. Now, sometimes you'll see GI tract areas that actually encompass almost the whole eye, and that's a stressed GI tract area. So you can gauge if your diet's working, if you need to detox. So on this dog, we might want to detox him with like humic or fulvic acid. I don't know if you're already on like ion gut restore or something like that, but it might be something you want to do for him. I just love his face, Erin. And then we have like this little line here, this little streak. Let's see, let's get a different photo. And you guys want to take lots of photos, and hopefully head on, but if you can't get head on, this is great. So you can see like out in here, it might be a glare from the background of Erin's flash.
Oh, yeah, it might be the lamp.
It might be the lamp, but if this is really here, this would be a lung concern. And then you guys see the outside of the eye is a little thick. And that could be skin circulation or even a little nervousness. So a little.
He's a very nervous dog.
There you go. Now I would say maybe clean up that gut a little bit. And we can't really see the pupil, right? We want it to lighten up enough that we see a difference between this line and the pupil. So we can read the pupil too. And then we've got some little like light spots, and that means acute. Dark spots usually mean toxic, and just little blobs and marks. All of this stuff means a little something. So that might be a front leg. Is his right front leg bothering him?
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
That is crazy.
He's been limping on his right front leg off and on for 8 months.
There you go. Eye doesn't lie. Isn't that amazing, you guys?
Mm-hmm.
It even brings tears to my eyes. I get emotional. I'm like, it's such a cool thing. That's pretty cool. And I didn't even know that. All right. So there we have a little lung point also again. And we've got something over here, and maybe just a little out of alignment in his hind end. And a little paw in the in the left hind foot. Just a little soreness. And also, this is interesting because it's fading. You guys see, like the other eye was kind of opaque, but this has a little more translucent to it. So actually, did you make some changes in his diet recently?
So, you know what? He's actually been eating like a different food recently, or like we switched the foods up. So he's been on a different brand for like the last week and a half or so.
Okay, so this is either coming or going. It's either fading and getting healthier, or it's growing. So because we don't have a little history, we don't know which way, but I think this is a better food for him. Yeah. So you're going to gauge this. You're going to, like, in 2 or 3 more days, you might look in his eye and compare it.
Okay.
And you'll know if that food's a better food for him.
That is cool.
Yeah. Isn't that fun?
Well, I found some iridology posters online that,
yes.
that you
Bernard Jensen is like the grandfather of American iridology. So it's iridology. This is how Mercedes taught me, not iridology. And so I've never forgot that, but I hear everybody say the other way too.
I know.
I know, right? And so Bernard Jensen was Mercedes Colburn's mentor. Mercedes was the first one to make animal eye grids, and she is my mentor. So we're just figuring it out. And so with this online membership that Erin hangs out at sometimes, we are making discoveries. I have like 4 veterinarians in there, and we're all studying and researching iridology. We have a team of dissectors for the horse division, and we read the irises and they dissect the horses. They're going to be euthanized anyway. And they go through the cadaver and assess all the body parts, and the iris has been pretty accurate.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Really cool. That is, after this, I'm going to go take pictures of my dog's eyes.
It's, I just think of all the times I could have used it. Like, it's going back, 10 or more years now, but like when my Lucy was sick and we didn't know what was wrong with her, and it was like this really weird form of pancreatic cancer. And it's like, and the vet kept saying it was a brain tumor because she had seizures. And I'm like, that's a perfect time where I could have gotten some insight into, what's going on. And honestly, like, I kick myself now that I didn't do it with Penny last fall. Maybe something would have come up about her repeated UTIs, maybe it was coming from a kidney thing. Maybe, I'm like, oh, I should have thought to do it then, and I think it's something that when you're like, something's not right, but I don't know what, that this could give you a really good start, really good insight.
Absolutely. I agree 100%. There has been lots of people that have said the same exact thing is, gosh, if I just knew this, I could have probably prevented something. And it can be pre-crime. You can see it mark in the eye often before a physical manifestation. But if you already have a mystery issue, you can definitely look at the points and go, okay, at that 7 o'clock spot, that's liver. So maybe there's a liver issue we better look at. Now, does that mean it's the only thing? No, some of those eyes are really complicated and marked to where you look at it and go, oh my gosh, and then you have to like go, okay, where are we starting with this eye? But getting the overall picture, and often it's fun because sometimes a mark in a quadrant will like slide into like 3 other quadrants, and you can see how that story was like, hey, it started here, but now all of these parts are affected by that one issue. And they'll be like, yeah, you're totally right. And so the nice thing is humans can talk and confirm this stuff. So, yeah. or go get some professional help. So the fun thing about iridology, yes, insight, it's a great assessment tool. Now, once you assess it, you need to figure out what to do with it. So that's where your veterinarians come in handy. I love vets. I don't have a problem with them. I work a lot with vets. And I have a lot of vet friends, and you guys love on your vets. It's a very hard career for them. It's something that I never wanted to do for a living because of that. So take care of your vets. But, if you do see a mark and it's not clearing up and it should clear up, and hopefully your blood work's changing and everything's changing, but maybe try Chinese medicine or something alternative and do more detoxifications. But there's your 6 elements of detoxification. And if any of those channels get blocked, you're heading to disease. So you can clean up those detox pathways and be ahead of it and prevent it, which is really great.
Yeah. Very good.
Yeah.
And so tell us about your different memberships and groups and ways that people can work with you.
So I have the Holistic Animal Insights private membership. And the reason why I created that is I was going to study my butt off to help iridology and muscle testing, because the more you know, the more you can help people. And I was like, well, if I'm going to do this anyway, I'm just going to invite a bunch of people to join this membership, and we're going to do it collaboratively. And so it's $10 a month. And we talk to some of the top professionals in the animal industry, and we get to learn about all these modalities. So it's kind of like modality based. We learn about nutrition, homeopathy. I think one of my favorite ones was Dr. Margaret Siegel, and she talked about the blood reading, live blood analysis. Like if I could poke the skin legally, I would be doing that. And so I think that live blood analysis is amazing. Mm-hmm. And then we had like Julie Jacobs with the photonic health light, and anything and everything you can think of. And one modality might be great for one person, and another modality might be great for somebody else. And so I think there's a ton of ways to cure a cat, right? And so something might work for me, but Bach flowers has not been my jam. But I love homeopathy and herbs and detoxification and body work. But some other people are like, homeopathy is the greatest thing or Bach flowers the greatest thing in the world, or frequency healing, which I have a client that is just kicking butt on frequency healing. I'm not getting it. It's not working for me, and I don't get good results from acupuncture at all, but I'm not going to stand in the way of somebody's wellness.
Yeah.
Ever. So what's not right for me, I will just point them in the next direction. And I have enough networking now where I have a lot of great experts that are good at those things that I can just be like, hey, go over here and go get help. Right. Like Dr. Jenna Rourke and essential oils. I'm still scared of essential oils. I just don't feel really confident. I've taken lots of her classes. I'm like, I still don't feel good about it. But she gets really good results in that. I'm like, just go talk to Dr. Janet, please. Yeah.
Nice. And then you also have the free group.
I have the Cancer-Free Canine page. It was originally a summit. So we did a summit in 2020, 2021. And then we all got bombarded by pet summits, and they do a great job, but I just didn't want to do one more summit. I was like, oh my gosh, there's so many summits. We are so overwhelmed with knowledge. So then I just started doing individual guest lectures about people's cancer-free canine victory stories. And I have loved that. I hope everybody else has loved it. I think I love it more than anybody, but everybody has a different process on how they approach canine cancer. And it's been really fascinating. So got to talk to Kelly Marin of Green Juju and the creation of Green Juju with her dog Bailey. And that's an empowering story. And then Dr. Nick Thompson, and he talked about bowel nosodes and things like that. I mean, it's just everybody approaches it differently, and different cancers respond differently for different reasons. And so I just want to keep the content going, information, expand people's horizons, help them ask their veterinarian or their veterinarian oncologist the right questions. Because I can tell you from my own experience, when my dog had that tumor in his spinal cord, I didn't ask the right questions. And because I didn't ask the right questions, I didn't get the right answers. And I wish I just put him in a wheelchair and never did the surgery. But I was never given that option, and I never asked about it. So I want to stop that for pet owners. I want to make sure they have all this knowledge where they can be like, hey, is there a plan 3? Like, you got plan 1 and 2. Is there something we haven't figured out or we haven't talked about yet? Like, is there a third option? And so I just want to empower pet owners like that.
Yeah, I think you're right about that. I hear from a lot of people, because I've lost 2 dogs to cancer over the past couple of years. So I hear from people probably at least once a month that have received either a diagnosis of lymphoma or a diagnosis of hemangiosarcoma, both of which I've experienced. And what saddens me is how helpless people feel, because the first message I give to people is, or I ask them, is like, how is your dog doing today? And they're like, well, they're fine. And I was like, right, because they don't know they're sick, but you're acting like your dog died. You're crying, and it's just like, I get that you're upset, but you have to find some strength within you, because you're not doing your dog a service. And while you're feeling these emotions, you're not able to have the conversation that you need to have, or you won't be able to remember what they tell you. And I was so lucky, because my second oncologist, with Sydney, they sent me home for her to die. There was no discussion. There was no options. I had to really fight for her. With Scout, I had an amazing oncologist that was like, I'm going to hit you up with a ton of information. You do not need to take notes, because I am taking all the notes, and I'm going to send you home with notes, and I'm going to email the notes to you. I mean, it was just, and every appointment was pages of notes. And it was just sort of like, all I had to do was go to the notes. So if all of a sudden at 9:00 at night, I started to freak out about something, I had a ton of notes that I can go to. And it was just like, oh, okay, yes, we talked about this. And she made it so easy for me as a raw feeder and someone who wanted to practice also holistic medicine, to have that conversation with her. Like, hey, I came across these herbs, and I just want to make sure it's not going to slow down what you're doing. And she would go and do all the research. I mean, she was really amazing. And so I feel like I was so lucky, but I also, I did not allow myself to mourn my dog until my dog was gone, because
mindset matters. Absolutely. Yeah. I'm a huge believer. Last year, I really dove into researching mindset and negativity and positivity. And it's, the conclusion is, it's real. Like, speak life, not death. And I have that conversation a lot too with my clients, is let's focus on the little wins. Let's celebrate that stuff. Let's enjoy the time you have. Do your bucket list. Yes, they don't I mean, some dogs I think do know they don't feel great.
Yeah.
But if you keep them entertained and you do all the things you promise to do with them, what a beautiful journey. I had a dog who got really sick, and it was before I worked on dogs, and he had Cushing, but they thought it was cancer, and he was misdiagnosed. So I had him autopsied, and he was like, I paid for an autopsy. The vet goes, "Oh, he had cancer." I'm like, my muscle testing said no. And I was like, "Are you sure?" And he goes, "Yeah." I go, "What kind of cancer?" And he's like, well, I think it was adrenal cancer." I'm like, "I paid you for a necropsy, and you're telling me you think it was?" I go, "Was there any tumors?" And he goes, "No." "Was there any lesions?" He's all, "No." I'm like, "My dog didn't have cancer. He had Cushing's." And he was like, "Well, your dog's dead and gone." And I was like, "Oh my gosh." It was horrible, you
So
guys.
compassionate.
It was
I'm
awful.
horrified.
It was horrifying. I cried for months and months and months. And that was a corgi of mine that was just devoted to me. But I had married a guy, and it was a really rough marriage. And my dog declined so fast. It was so hard on him. And so it was hard on all of us. I think I was equally as hard for my husband as my husband was on me. It was not a good match for all of us, but the dog definitely suffered, and that was too bad. Yeah.
It's funny because I struggle with all of the, the woo-woo of the world, because my faith tells me, no, that's the occult. Ignore it. Don't, go into that. But it's not all the occult. I think that, energy and, positivity and negativity is so, all of us have had the experience where we're at work or we're just in a room with people, and one person walks into the room and the entire energy of the room changes, because that person is always just so dark and so negative. And I mean, right now I'm thinking of the person in my life, and this was like probably not even 30 years ago. There is this guy at a company I worked with. I don't even remember his name, but I just remember him and how and this isn't true, but I thought that they shut down. It was a building where one person owned the building, and he owned all the companies in the building. They shut down that company and moved everyone else to different jobs except for this guy. And I used to think they shut down that company just so they can get rid of him, because it's like he was so negative. It was just so.
But it wasn't true, right?
No, it wasn't. But and I have felt that, where if I'm in a really dark mood, if I'm really sad, my dogs gather to me. But if I'm really angry, they kind of all distance themselves from me. So whenever I'm frustrated, any emotion that I deem as negative, I go for a walk. And I don't go with the dogs. I just go by myself. I listen to a podcast. I loved Bigfoot stories. And by the time I get back,
Terrifying. I live out in the country. I don't love Bigfoot stories.
I live in the Pacific Northwest, and I'm walking along a trail with woods on both sides. But we're too close to civilization for Bigfoot to be where I am. But I have a friend that swears that she's smelled Bigfoot on many occasions, and where she lives, you can hear sometimes Bigfoot. I don't know, but I just do love Bigfoot stories. I've loved them since I was a kid, so it's like my calming place. And it's so random, I know, but yeah, I just go for a walk listening to Bigfoot stories.
Wow. I don't even know what to say about that. I mean, are they good Bigfoot stories? Like, are they happy? Like,
there's this guy on YouTube. He has the most amazing voice, and he tells stories. And his voice is and he's just basically, people send him stories and he just reads their story. His voice is so soothing. It's like, I've gone to sleep to his voice. His voice is so soothing. This man has so many followers on YouTube. And even when you look in the comments, you'll see people like, I love your voice so much. It is. Awesome. I have favorites of his that I'll go back, and they're hours, like, cause he'll take tons of them, and you'll have 8 hours or 3 hours of just him reading. It's amazing.
That is amazing. Isn't it an amazing world we live in now?
Isn't it though? Yeah. It's just like the stuff that, I see people who, when I watch the news and it's so depressing and stuff, but then I'm just like, but then I can, I can watch like the most amazing things, or just the creative. This woman, okay, so this is so random. So, like the small tissue box, this woman shows how to turn that into a bag dispenser. So when you get the plastic grocery store bags, so you have an empty tissue box, and you take one bag, you take all the air out of it, you stick it into the box until just the handle is out. You take another bag, get all the air out of it, you put it through the handle by a few inches, and then you stuff it in. And you just keep doing that with all your bags. And then when you're done, you can just pull them out like tissue.
Like a dispenser.
Yeah. And it's just so
I love that, but Kimberly, that would drive me crazy to fill it.
Well, that's just it. Is I was going to do it because I have allergies. So I'm sure pretty soon I'll have an empty one. But then I thought about it, and it was like, my bags are in an old cereal box from Costco, and that's just fine enough for me. But it was just like, I love the fact that someone, I don't even know how,
figured that out. Yeah.
I love life. But I'm just like really so fascinated by the iridology and just what you showed was so clear. That's what I really liked. It's, a lot of times when people will explain these things to you, you're sort of nodding along like, yeah, I guess. But I saw what you were pointing out. And
right. And the fact really, I didn't know Erin's dog even had that right front.
Yeah.
Like, whatever eye that was. I was
recording it, and I was so mad because I wish I would have recorded that one, because Erin's response and reaction to it, because I knew. And so I immediately looked at her, and seeing her response, that was so cool. So we'll have to like edit that part out and turn it into a reel, because that was so cool.
That's great. I love the shock factor of it, right? It's so much fun. I did a cat podcast last year, and this gal puts up she goes, oh, I lost my cat to a respiratory tumor. And I go, oh, there should be a mark right in a certain spot. And she goes, can I share my cat eye with you? And I'm like, go ahead. She throws it on the screen. She's like, oh my God, there it is. And I was excited too, because you guys, it's a never ending thing. It's like, we want to study more pancreatitis dogs. We want to study more teeth issues. Like the grid that we work off is not as elaborate as human grids. Human iridology is amazing, you guys. I am not a human iridologist, but they have it like genetic coded and all sorts of crazy things, like the dad's genetics mark in one eye and the mom's genetics mark in the other eye. We don't have animals down like that yet, but that's a quest. Absolutely.
I mean, I think it's really cool, because I feel like we're at a point right now with, it's so hard to find a really good veterinarian that you jive well with. And veterinarians are so overwhelmed and overworked. And I've read that the number of people entering veterinarian school has declined. So we're at a point where I think we need to sort of start triaging our dogs to figure out what's going on, and seeing, without risking their health, trying to fix the smaller things at home. And any tool that we can add to our toolbox will help us do that, as long as we're using it accurately and we're taking the time to really educate ourselves, and not just listening to a podcast and then thinking that we can do it, but listening to a podcast and joining a group and learning how to do it.
Yes. So the number of pets are increasing, the number of vets are decreasing. And so right now in California, you're still an 8-hour wait at some of these ERs in the bigger cities. I don't know about the small cities. I doubt it, but there needs to be more vets. But if we can build awareness through podcasts like this, online platforms, summits, Pet Summits is doing a great job. That's why I was like, go baby, go for it. And I'll just do individual
I do love it.
stuff.
But what you said, I've gotten that feedback from my followers where they're kind of burnt out.
They're saturated. It's
because there's so much coming at them, and everything is just a tip of the iceberg type of information. They're not actually learning anything, and they need to have where the summit is just going to be iridology. So we're going to
right. I agree. I would love to host a homeopathy summit, just animal homeopathy, just iridology, like just specific modalities. I think it would be
fantastic. I mean, and I honestly think that it would be successful, because I recently earned my canine nutrition certification. And one of the things that I walked away from that is there is in no way do I feel prepared to offer canine consultations, nutrition consultations to anyone. I do feel very much well educated, and I feel very knowledgeable. And I feel like what I'm doing with my dogs, I was already confident. I feel like I got this, no problems with my dogs, but I'm not ready to start bringing people into my home or going to someone else's home and saying, okay, this is what you need to do. But if I had a course, and it's similar to, what we're talking about with health, if there was a week, an intensive week, kind of like when you were in college, where you had maybe 3 lectures, like Monday, Wednesday, Friday, a few hours, and we really, we had a book or some type of, information to follow. And we were just basically in depth on one aspect of iridology, where this is what we're going to talk about and this is what we're going to get into. Yeah. And by the end of that week, we feel, even if there's not an exam, but we feel so like, okay, I feel like I understand what's going on. Let's go on to the next week, because that's where the summit, I think it's amazing, because it's introducing us to different voices and it's introducing us to different modalities. But now we want more. And I think that the summit is kind of like letting us walk through the door, but people like you are the ones that are going to sit down with us and then teach us over an extended period of time. Because I still would love to know more about homeopathy. It's just, there isn't anything for the average dog owner that goes into the depth that you need to go into, because there's a lot to it. It's not just about little, white little pellets.
Yeah, I'm more of an acute prescriber. I'm not much of a chronic prescriber. I have friends that are chronic prescribers, so I try to push people that way when we're dealing with chronic issues. But can
you explain the difference? Because I would think those were the same thing, acute and chronic.
Yeah, acute is like sudden onset, like food poisoning or a broken leg or something like that. But an autoimmune disorder, that something that's deeper or more complicated, cancer, something that has layers upon layers and has been drawn out for months and years, and you still haven't gotten answers. So sometimes, there's some cases where I'm like, I'm not the right person for you. Let's find you somebody that will help you and see if that's a better fit. Because there's plenty of work for everybody. Yeah. If you're good at your job, you're always going to have work.
Yeah. Well, and, ultimately it's one thing that a friend always says to me is that, you have to always remember why you're here. It's like, I'm here for the dogs. Whenever I'm tempted to go left and start doing something different, it's like, that's not going to help a dog. That's not going to help a dog owner. It's maybe serving my ego, but it's not really helping. So let me reset and get back to that. And one of the things is, I have no problem saying I don't know and I can't help, and here's someone. I don't mind sharing the wealth, because in the end, one of the best feelings in the world is when someone contacts me and says, oh my gosh, what you said helped me. Because it's just like, yay, good.
Right. And it's a whole new dog world out there is all these at-home tests.
Mm-hmm.
So, thank you, Innovative Pet Lab. Thank you, Animal Biome. Thank you, Glacier Peak. And all this stuff, Embark, everything you can do at home without going to the vet, and getting all this stuff done before you even walk in the door, and have like all your cards on the table going, look what I've done. And hopefully your veterinarian knows what that stuff is. And I haven't gone into hair testing. I can't wait to learn a little more about that. I think that is pretty interesting in its own right, but that's another at-home test you can do.
Yeah.
So there's lots of cool things out there right now, you guys.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So, Kimberly, I know you had talked about like your faith and kind of trying to balance like woo-woo with your faith. And I mean, Poppy is like one of the most vocal people of faith who I see on social media. And I love that about her. And Poppy, I was just curious if do you feel like there's anything competing there, or how do you like reconcile like people who are looking at intuitive things or animal communication type stuff? I was really curious to get your thoughts on that.
Oh, thank you, Erin.
It's a huge, you do the pet prayers, and it's like,
yeah,
I'm always so touched by it, because it's just, there's people who seem performative about it, but like, I know with you, it's such a genuine thing. And I respect that, I'm just like, oh, I love it.
I should do the pet prayer more open to the public. I normally just do it within the membership. Once I did it open to the public, there's a lot of private things that come up. So I worry about that. So I do believe in Jesus Christ. I believe that I'm alive because of Jesus Christ. I was raised New Age and occult though. And so you're probably talking to the right person. And the reason why I was raised New Age and occult was because the church in the 70s and the 80s pretty much was afraid of supernaturally gifted individuals. And they really, deemed them as witches or feared them and cast, you can't come here. You're not our type of person. And so I ended up going down the occult path and hanging out with a lot of psychics, and went to Egypt and did that whole New Age stuff. And it was just an empty power play. And it was just so shallow and hurtful. And it just didn't serve anybody. It was all about control and manipulation and keeping somebody coming back for another psychic reading and being their guru. And I don't want to be anybody's guru. Like, everybody can have Jesus. Jesus is free to everyone. And when you receive Jesus, you receive gifts. And I just have this I think it's amazing. It shocks me, actually, is like a word of knowledge, supernatural understanding, and prophetic gifting. And so, and I'm kind of like a medical intuitive, but I always pray and ask the Holy Spirit to guide me. It seems to show up every single day. Every day is brand new for me. I do this all day long with pet people, and I'm just like, hey, it still works. I'm still doing this. And so I just keep rolling with it. But even Christians are very sketchy about my abilities and who I am and what I do. And they're like, I'm like, if it scares you what I do, it scares me too. Pray for me, be a good Christian and pray for me. But Jesus calls us to go out and heal the sick, raise the dead, cast out demons, and preach the gospel. And I take that to heart. And it says in the Bible, preach the gospel to all creatures. And so I literally preach the gospel to creatures. I'm like, it says to do it. I don't know what that means, and I don't know what that looks like. So I'm just going to do my interpretation of that. And so I do. And there's a holy communion between animals, humans, and God in Genesis 9. And so that's where the rainbow was created, as a friendly reminder to God about our commitment to each other. And it's just beautiful. And even in Job, it says, ask the animals and they will teach you. And so animals are good teachers. We just have to be aware. And same with the herbs, you guys. The herbs are so exciting to me. They have that signature, like all the red herbs are usually about cardiac and all the yellow herbs are usually about kidneys. And there's just like this crazy, easy color coding system. It's not always 100% perfect because we've done some genetic modifications, but it's kind of fun to know that there's this divine color coding sectioning. Yeah. So yeah, you opened the box there.
No, thank you for sharing that.
Are you really going to ask me this?
Thank you for sharing.
You're welcome. I'm very passionate about this.
No, I appreciate you.
I appreciate you too.
Well, thank you so much. This was like so amazing. I mean, I put a couple books in my shopping cart and I'm like looking forward to just going deeper into all of this. I love anything that's going to just help me better understand the dogs that I live with.
I love your heart, Kimberly, and God bless you and honor you on that. Obviously, you were wired that way.
Thank you.